Okay, good morning everyone. Díobh agus fáilte. You're very welcome to the 2024 eTwinning National Conference. My name is Una Kelly and I'm one of the eTwinning officers at Lergus. I want to welcome you all to the Hyatt this morning and thank you for making the journey here to be with us for what we hope will be a very interesting day on wellbeing at school. I also want to welcome our online audience who are joining via Zoom. We hope that you have an exciting and engaging conference experience. I'm going to quickly run through the agenda for today with you. So we'll start the morning with a welcome from Deirdre Finlay, Head of Education and Training Development at Lergus. She'll be replacing Lorraine Gilligan. We'll then have our keynote speaker, Dr. Seaneen Sloan from Children's School Lives from 10:10 until 10:40. Following the keynote, we'll have a panel discussion on inclusive practices in education, moderated by Amanda Ade. There'll be time for an audience Q&A at the end of the panel. Online attendees are also welcome to ask questions. So if you want to put questions in the chat, you're very welcome to, and we'll keep an eye on what comes in. At 11:15 a.m, we'll be celebrating our eTwinning National Quality Label winners, as well as the winners of the European Innovative Teaching Awards. And this will be followed by a coffee break until 12 p.m. when our workshops start. So there's 2 workshops on site this morning and 1 online. The first is Wellbeing Practices for Teachers, facilitated by Grania Nugent. That will be in the Dean Swift 1. The second will be Supporting Children and Young People Online, facilitated by Jane McGarrigle and Tracy Hogan of Webwise in the Dean Swift 2. And our third workshop will be online. This will focus on developing Erasmus Plus projects in wellbeing and outdoor education, facilitated by Caroline Yorke and Bríd Grady. Anyone who wants to watch this workshop on site can also watch it from this room. For anyone joining us here in the Hyatt this morning, we're having lunch at 1 p.m. in the Liberty Gate restaurant, which is just back out by the reception and to the left. So we'd be delighted if you join us after the workshops are finished for lunch. And you can also follow us on social media. If you want to share any photos or anything of today, please use the hashtag eTwinning. You can follow us on Twitter at Lergus_eTwin and eTwinning Ireland on LinkedIn. And finally, after the event, we'll be sending around a survey to everyone. So please do share your experiences for both the in-person and online. And we'd love to hear what you think. So now I'll hand over to Deirdre to kick off.
Okay, thank you, Una, and welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Lorraine can't be with us, unfortunately, but that's great because that gives me an opportunity to greet you all. So my name is Deirdre Finlay. I'm Head of Education and Training Programmes at Lergus, and I'm here to kick things off for this year's eTwinning National Conference. So today we're celebrating our amazing eTwinning community of over 2,000 dedicated teachers in Ireland and a whopping 1 million members across Europe. And since our last get-together, which was last year, our eTwinning team, which is Una and Ava, have really hit some great milestones. We've hosted many fantastic events, some of which you've been engaging with us on. We've sent 12 teachers to workshops abroad. We've registered 36% more projects from Ireland on our platform, and we've created lots of new resources, which is so helpful to support people to engage with eTwinning, such as project kits, a primary curriculum guide, and 6 support videos, and thanks to those who also contributed to us creating those. We've also started expanding eTwinning into initial teacher education and into early years. We had been doing this before, but we've reignited that this year. And next year, we'll actually celebrate 20 years of eTwinning, honouring the great projects and exchanges from our teachers and students, and we look forward to celebrating that with us. So on to today. So this year's theme is nurturing well-being in schools. And we know, post-pandemic, we've seen how crucial it is to address the links between technology and well-being. So in terms of well-being in schools, well, today we're looking at how schools provide safe and nurturing environments, create equitable learning spaces, and the importance of teacher well-being, of course. In terms of digital technologies, we want to explore a little bit how can eTwinning and tech contribute to well-being. And in terms of European programmes, what can eTwinning and indeed Erasmus Plus, which is what we also promote and work on at Lergus, what can it do to support well-being in schools? So how can you accelerate or leverage those tools and that funding for this topic? So well-being, is not just about feeling good. It can be seen as a bit of a buzzword. But from our perspective, it's about expanding and fostering intercultural curiosity. Engaging with diverse cultures through eTwinning projects can actually help students and teachers understand and appreciate different viewpoints, enrich their educational experience, and boost mental and emotional well-being. So this broadens horizons, promotes empathy, and builds a more inclusive school environment for everyone. In recent years, we know that schools have been navigating the balance between beneficial technology use and addressing digital safety concerns. None of this is new. Of course, the concerns include cyberbullying, screen fatigue, the list is endless, but it's essential that we both educate students and teachers on digital well-being. So through eTwinning, we can actually explore how to create positive, safe online spaces that enhance learning without compromising ourselves or our emotional well-being, okay? We know that the topic of, school technology has been very controversial and addressed recently by the government in terms of that 9 million investment. It's intended, I suppose, to limit access to mobile phones during the school day, and this has sparked a lot of debate. So we know that this is intended as an effort towards reducing distractions, encouraging more face-to-face interactions, but I suppose it raises important questions about how we prioritise well-being. I'm sure that's a discussion you can have amongst yourselves. So beyond limiting screen time, we need to ensure that our students and teachers are supported through more holistic measures. With our eTwinning platform, we can provide an opportunity to explore these broader strategies, allowing us to learn from schools all across Europe and all of your colleagues and new friends across Europe to implement innovative approaches to well-being that go way beyond technology. So listen, that's enough from me, because this morning we've got a great lineup to guide you. We're going to have a keynote on schools' children's lives and their well-being. We have workshops, which Una ran through. We're going to be discussing a bit around Erasmus+, keep it in mind, and we'll have a panel on inclusive practices in education just after the keynote. We're also celebrating award winners. Thank you so much for participating in eTwinning, for coming today if you're here. If you're online, also thank you. And we will be presenting our eTwinning National Quality Label and also our ETA Awards, which stands for European Innovative Teaching Awards. I suppose just a reminder, these awards and these opportunities, they exist every year, so do get involved if you haven't before. There are opportunities for you and your school to, I suppose, be recognised, which is great. So to wrap up, I'd like to thank the eTwinning team. You've been fantastic, and all the rest of the team at Lergus. I can't thank you all enough for the work undertaken to deliver today. And a big thanks to, of course, the digital education team at the Department of Education, which co-funds this work as a national support office in Ireland. But look, I'll hand over to Dr. Seaneen Sloan. Thank you for joining us today, who is the head of school at the UCD School of Education, and we'll have a keynote introducing our theme, Wellbeing at School. Thank you.
Now, I hope everybody can see me at this podium here, because I have to stand in front of it so I can see my notes, because I want to make sure I cover everything that I have promised to when I was envisaging this, this keynote. So just give me 1 second. I'm just going to turn on the notes presentation here. So sorry. I think I just need, slideshow. I just want presenter view with the notes. Okay, I can do it like that. Yep, that's perfect. Thank you. All right, technology. Okay, so thank you for that introduction. I'm an assistant professor in the School of Education at University College Dublin, where I'm the deputy head of school and one of the leads for a project that I'm going to talk to you about today called Children's School Lives. Have any of you heard of Children's School Lives before? Come across any of our events? Some of you have. Some of you may have even been part of Children's School Lives. I'll talk to you about it in a minute. It's a very large-scale study in Ireland looking at primary education. So I'm very excited to be telling you about some of our findings in relation to wellbeing. So I'll move on to the next slide here. I don't think I have control over the slides, but clicker. Perfect. Wonderful. So this is my building here, which some of you will be familiar with. The School of Education, which is the picture there on the left, where I'm based. And at UCD, we've also set up a new centre, which I'm leading on, and that's the Centre for the Advancement of Wellbeing in Education, which we've just got up and running from September. So I've just included that as well, and I'll include a web link at the end to some of our resources. And what I'm going to talk about today, is starting out by talking about considering what well-being is. It's an idea and a term that is used all the time in lots of different ways. So we're going to talk a bit about what we might mean by well-being and some of the different ways that we can understand well-being. And then children's well-being specifically. What sort of things do we need to think about in relation to children's well-being? And then well-being at school, leading into some of the data that we've collected through the Children's School Lives study. So well-being, what does it mean? I could probably set that question here to you as a group, 20 or 30 people in the room here, and we might get 20 or 30 different responses about what well-being is. So it's a concept that's of interest to many people, to many researchers, practitioners, governments, other organisations who seek to measure well-being and compare well-being across countries. Excuse me. So well-being has been understood and defined in many, many different ways. But a neat or a clear way to think about well-being, it's how we are doing as individuals, communities and nations. And for you as educators, you might be able to think of, you know, what does it look like in my school? If a child is doing well, what are the sort of characteristics or features that I would look for to know if a child is doing well in this school or in my community? But these are three sort of things to keep in mind when we think about what well-being is. So it's a positive concept. So it's more than just the absence of ill health or disadvantage or deprivation. It's more than that. It's experiencing a good life and not just the absence of negative indicators. Well-being is also dynamic, so it can change according to individual circumstances. It can change over time, and it's influenced by our environment. And lastly, well-being is multidimensional, meaning that it's made up of multiple different elements, which we'll talk about. So some of those elements are reflected here on the screen, and this is not inclusive. There are many other elements as well. But sometimes well-being is divided into these notions of objective well-being, which is things like our life conditions, so our income, access to jobs and employment opportunities, resources that we might have available at home or in our community, physical health, having social networks, things like that. And then there's also subjective well-being, and sometimes it's the subjective well-being is what we first think of when we think of well-being. So that's having those positive feelings and emotions, which sometimes is referred to in the more academic literature as hedonia, hedonic well-being. And then there's other forms of well-being, like how satisfied we are with our life and having meaning and purpose in our life. Oh, sorry. So these give you some ideas, I suppose, as to how we can understand what well-being is. And the Irish government has made well-being a real priority area, and over the last couple of years has developed a framework for well-being in Ireland, which includes 11 different dimensions, and this applies across society, not just children, but adults as well. And it includes different indicators like job satisfaction, amount of disposable income, environmental quality, access to housing. We know that that's a massive issue in Ireland. And then subjective well-being is one of the indicators within that as well, or one of the dimensions, which includes what we've just talked about, life satisfaction, emotional state, and having a meaning and purpose in your life. So the Irish government is emphasising and really prioritising a lot of this in the work that they're doing going forward. But then when we think about child well-being, well, there's a number of other important considerations to take on board. It is different to adult well-being, mainly because childhood is a phase of growth, of development, and of dependency. So children don't have the same opportunities that adults do to direct and shape their own lives. They are dependent upon the adults in their lives to provide a particular environment, both directly and indirectly, to provide for their well-being. And this links to this graph, which I took from a UNICEF report on child well-being and the conditions for children's lives, which really shows, I guess, the ecology of children's lives and their well-being and the different things, the different environments that shape their development and their well-being. So in the white circle there at the centre is where children's well-being sits. And then the dark blue rings just around that are those the world of the child that is central to that child's life. So that's things like the activities that they do on a day-to-day basis, like playing, learning, interacting with their friends, having relationships with friends, school and family. So that's that world of the child. And then the next layer of rings is influences on the child's world. So that's the things that happen around the child's world. And it's things like their community, what goes on in their community and how they interact with their community, their school and things like that. And then just beyond that, the next layer is about the types of resources that are available to the child and their family through their neighbourhood and their school and within their household. And then that much outer ring there focuses on the world at large. So that's the policy context that children are growing up in, as well as other things like the education and health systems that maybe influence different aspects of their growth, development and learning. And then the economy and the culture in which a child grows up. And that culture can sort of shape how children are treated within society, how they are understood and how people engage with them. So that's child well-being is a very complex picture when you consider all those different levels and factors that influence children's well-being. And then I was thinking to myself, what are some of the pressures that might be on children's lives in general? And I just thought over the last few years, what things am I aware of in the news, that have been discussed in terms of children's well-being, or that children might be exposed to through, discourses in society at the minute. And there are so many things, and so many of them begin with C for some reason. But we have COVID-19, cost of living crisis, the conflicts, either locally or globally, that children will hear and learn about, and that have led to things like refugee and movement and displacement and all of that children may be exposed to even within their school by having children then placed within their school. And then there's the whole area of digitalisation, the digital world, the online world, and there's massive benefits to that, but also potential for risks and harm that we have to be aware of as well. So there is a myriad of pressures on children's well-being. And then let's take it a step further and think about school. Children spend, as you know, as educators, a huge amount of time and a huge amount of their childhood growing and developing within the school context through relationships that they form with their peers and with other adults in the school. So it's a place where they get to develop other skills like their independence skills, social skills, physical development and skills, as well as obviously academic skills. So school is a place to support the holistic development of children. It's a place where they develop lots and lots of skills beyond the typical academic skills. And we also know that well-being and achievement, there's an interrelatedness there between these two concepts. So sometimes, we think of the two in isolation, or maybe that one well-being might influence achievement, or that achievement might influence well-being. And the literature would certainly say, like the research literature, would say that there is a complex relationship between well-being and achievement. So this concept then of well-being promotion within school then comes into play. And as educators, you may also be aware of lots of different programs or packages or supports or resources that are made available to schools, sometimes at a cost, as in, you know, that there's a monetary amount associated with purchasing different materials. And these programs are sort of used to help support and develop different aspects of children's social and emotional learning and their well-being. So schools are often seen as a place where children can be supported to develop their well-being, and resources are often provided either through the curriculum or separately in order to give teachers and educators resources to support children in their well-being. But it is quite complex. The school context is a complex environment for children. I've taken this list from a document. It's the Wellbeing Policy Statement for Framework for Practice, published by the Department of Education in 2019, that lists a number of risk factors for children's well-being at school within the school context. I'll not read them all out there, but you can see there's lots of ways where children's well-being may be at risk, specifically within the school context. There's also a number of protective factors within the school context. And again, these are taken from the same document, the Wellbeing Policy Statement and Framework for Practice. And these are really important things for us to keep in mind about how schools can support children's well-being through developing positive relationships, developing children's sense of belonging and connectedness to school, and that word security, you know, this notion of safety and children feeling like school is a safe place. Opportunities for social and emotional learning, opportunities for development and knowledge of skills, because we know achievement and well-being are closely linked. Fostering expectations, recognising contribution, effort and achievement, and providing opportunities for success, whatever that might look like, whatever success might look like, and that can vary for different children. And then protocols and systems that proactively support children and their families should difficulties arise. So the school context provides lots of opportunities, as well as some areas where children might, where there might be risk factors. So with all that background information in mind, I'm going to move on to talking about our project, Children's School Lives, which began in 2018, and it was funded by the National Council for Curriculum and Assessment, who funded a team at UCD to take on a longitudinal study of children's experiences of schooling. And why we were particularly excited about and keen to do this project was that the NCCA really emphasised that they wanted the study to foreground children's experiences and children's voice. So that's what we've done, and I'm going to show you some of that data now. Now, the study is broad. It covers a whole range of different thematic areas. Wellbeing is just one of them. And later on, I'll provide sort of information about some of our other reports that we've done and are currently working on, which show you, or which I think give a flavour of the range of data that we've collected on all sorts of things to do with equality and diversity, to do with leadership, to do with school cultures, to do with curriculum, assessment, pedagogy, everything that happens in school, basically. We have tried to collect data on it over the last number of years, including during COVID. So it has been a massive undertaking. And this is a photo of our team. So we have 4 sort of lead investigators. We're along the front there. And then a whole team that are behind us there that help to run all the day-to-day operations of the project, including the data collection and the data analysis. And then we have a whole other team of about 30 field workers who are based all over Ireland. because our schools are all over Ireland, as you'll see on the next slide. And those field workers have been with us, many of them from the beginning of the project in 2019 when we started to do our first round of data collection. So our study wouldn't have been possible without all the people in the photo, but also lots of people who are not in the photo as well. So I just want to acknowledge all those contributions. So the Children's School Live study, just to give you a brief snapshot of some of our methods. It involved 2 cohorts. We refer to cohort A, cohort A is like the sort of early stage of primary school. So it followed a group of children who began in junior infants in autumn 2019, and we followed them up until 2nd class. That involved 84 schools. We did have some schools that dropped out over the course of the study, but we still had 78 schools in our final wave of data collection in 2nd class. And that involved around 2,000 children annually in that cohort. And then we had cohort B, which was the second half of primary school, which is what we focused on with cohort B. So that was from 2nd class through to 6th class. And then we also did a sort of sub-study looking at the primary school to secondary school transition as well. And in that cohort, we had around 100 schools and again around 2,000 children every year that we were following longitudinally. And that longitudinal design is really important because sometimes studies only collect data at one point in time, whereas we were able to follow and map out children's trajectories and how things changed over time and how those changes might have related to other changes for them, how those changes may be related to changes within the school context as well. So it's a really powerful study that we've been supported to conduct here. And it will be nationally significant and internationally significant in terms of the evidence that we're able to produce from it. So we conducted questionnaires every year with the children, children, with teachers, with principals and with parents. But as well as doing the questionnaire, like quantitative, the numeric data collection, we also wanted to really emphasize and get really in-depth data through qualitative data collection. So that involved 13 case study classrooms and 28 case study children, where we did like intergenerational data collection with their parents and also their grandparents as well. So in total, over the last number of years, we've conducted 541 interviews. So between the questionnaire data and the interview data, we have a massive data set to draw on, and you can see that our schools are our schools are nationally representative as well and cover the whole country. All right. I'll not dwell on this slide too long, but it's just to show the longitudinal nature of the data collection there, and the fact that with the first cohort, we had 4 waves of data collection, and in the cohort B, the older cohort, we had 5 waves of data collection within primary school, where we were able to follow the children over time from 2nd class until the end of primary school. So I'm going to talk through some of our findings that we have published in a report for the NCCA that's on our website. But just to say that we decided to frame Wellbeing using this model called the PERMA model. I'm not sure if anybody has come across it before, but it's by an author called Seligman. And there's a reference at the bottom, but also on my last slide as well. And really this PERMA framework talks about the building blocks of wellbeing and sets those out as that the building blocks that we need for wellbeing are experiencing positive emotions, engagement or feeling involved in what we're doing in our daily lives, relationships, so feeling socially integrated and cared for by others, having meaning and purpose in our lives, feeling fulfilled by our lives, feeling like what we do is meaningful, and then lastly, accomplishments, so accomplishments, so feeling like you're achieving your goals and developing a sense of competence in yourself through that. So these are some of the things then that we were able to look at within our data. And the report that we provided on wellbeing is really lengthy. So I'm not going to be able to give you all I'm just going to give you a snapshot of some of the key things. But the report is open access and available for anybody that wants to delve a little bit deeper. So starting out with the concept of positive emotions, we ask children, are you happy in general? We ask them every year. And we find something kind of surprising here. I think you might not be able to see the graph very clearly there, but basically a higher score is that children were reporting that they were more often happy than not. So the higher the dot or the line is on the graph, that represents stronger or more feelings of happiness, I guess. And the blue bar is girls, and the purple bar is boys. So what we find here is that most children were responding very positively to the question, are you happy in general? Most children were selecting the response option, usually or always. But happiness seemed to peak in 2021, and from 2021 then it seemed to decrease over the subsequent years, and boys reported higher levels of well-being than girls over time as time went on. So, we're not quite sure what we're seeing there in terms of a pattern, and we felt like the 2021 year of data collection was kind of impacted by COVID. Children were returning to school more properly and more substantially following the COVID school closures. So perhaps children's feelings about their happiness was linked to being back in school, being connected more to their friends again. So it was interesting to have that data collection before and after COVID. We also asked children other questions about their positive emotions. So we asked how they felt about themselves. We asked, do you feel good about who you are? And here again, we find a pattern of boys reporting feeling better about themselves compared to girls. So boys are the purple line and girls are the blue line. The pink line is just the sample overall. And it was interesting that feelings of feeling good about who you are seem to decrease as children aged from second class through to sixth class. And this was particularly the case for girls. So girls' feelings of feeling good about themselves seemed to decrease more than boys, which we felt was very interesting. We asked children about their feelings of worry and anxiety. And for this, we used like a standardized scale that involved multiple items. We found that worry and anxiety levels increased from second class through to sixth class, and that girls reported higher levels of feeling anxious compared to boys at all time points, but that gap between girls and boys seemed to widen slightly over time. We absolutely love our qualitative data to help us understand why we might be seeing these differences or these trends, or to help contextualize and add that really important child voice to some of our quantitative data. What we found was children most often talked about things that caused them worry and anxiety were around friendships and social issues within school. So when children maybe fought and things like that, was a key source of anxiety and worry for children. So friendships were an issue there. And then also being worried about not performing well in school. So when a teacher asked a question, maybe not getting the answer right and things like that was a key source of worry and anxiety for children. Children were generally positive about school and reported high levels of liking school, but that seemed to decrease over time. Girls had more positive feelings about school compared to boys at all time points. So the blue bar being girls, you can see that it's higher than boys at all of the time points. And then we asked children, this may not be clear for people at the back, but I'll talk through a little bit of it. We asked children how interested they were in their subjects every year. And we find this was really interesting when we looked at the patterns over time. So we found that as children moved up through the grades, some subjects became a lot less liked. And just one that's particularly noticeable in terms of a downward trend is Irish, which is, I'm not sure if my pointer will work. Oh, it does. So you can see Irish, that by the last wave of data collection, 6th class, only 24% of the sample said that they were interested in learning Irish. The subjects that seemed to sustain children's interest the most were PE, and another subject that seemed to start relatively high and remain high is SESE, so social, environmental, scientific education. So yeah, really interesting patterns there in terms of, as children get older, interest seems to drop off across all subjects, which is maybe concerning in terms of the curriculum and how that manages to keep children engaged as they get older. But art and PE seem to be consistently favoured by children. Interesting, you know, those maybe very practical applied subjects. Relationships were highlighted by children, especially in that qualitative data that we collected. Those relationships were highlighted as being really important aspects of children's school experiences. In the questionnaire data, children said that they usually felt cared for, but children's feelings of being cared for tended to decrease over time. So older children didn't feel like they were cared for quite as much as they started to get older. We have a quote here, we asked children about how they understood and experienced being cared for in school. And so one of the children, you know, they would have talked about instances and taken photos for us about where they felt cared for in school, for example, and I'm going to show you some of those photos in a second. But children also understood where there might be challenges for a teacher to be caring. So here, for example, is talking about, you know, the number of children in the class. How can a teacher possibly cater for all those needs, is what this girl was alluding to, and talking about soldiers coming to the desk, marching up. So in this slide here, we used a technique called photo voice, where we asked children to take photos of places in the school where they felt cared for or not cared for. And here a child took a photo of like the learning support room, the place where you go for like the one-to-one or maybe the small group support in literacy or numeracy, for example. So that was a place where, you know, that type of contact and interaction was seen as being very caring and supportive. And then to give you another example of a place that children took a photo of as a place that was uncaring was outside the principal's office, because that was associated with being in trouble, you know, being punished. So very interesting. We have lots more photos and things like that and examples and really lovely quotes within our report if anybody wants to read the whole thing. We also collected some data from the children on bullying. We found that around 70% of children from 4th to 6th class had not been a victim of bullying, which obviously means there's a solid enough proportion of children there that are experiencing bullying within school. And then around 10% of children in that same group disclosed that they had bullied another child, which could be an underestimate given that some children may not have wanted to admit to bullying. So that 10% is possibly underestimating the actual extent of bullying behaviour. Support provided by the teacher. We asked children a question in the questionnaire, to what extent does your teacher like to help you learn? And children most often rated that between usually and always, so quite high on our scale. But that seemed to drop slightly over time, so that by 6th class, that was when the perception or the rating of teacher support by children was at its lowest. We have some nice quotes. A quote here from a child that explains how the teacher provides support and how the teacher is able to provide individualised support. So if 3 people put up their hand and she would go to all 3, she would never just forget about one of them. So really demonstrating how the children pick up on the teacher's practices. Then meaning and purpose. We asked children about, did they feel their schoolwork, what they did in school was relevant to their lives? And overall, most did. But as children moved up through the class levels, those levels of agreement that their schoolwork was relevant to their lives started to decrease. So there's a pattern here which you can see across all the sort of dimensions that as children get older, things start to get less positive, which is of concern. And also some of the gender differences with, in some cases, girls perceiving things to be better or worse compared to boys is also something that's of note. And then accomplishment, here we looked at a few different things, but I'm just going to highlight the academic self-concept. It sort of decreased from 2nd to 4th class, but there were COVID issues all around that time, which may have impacted on that data and the children's understanding of their own ability, because they weren't necessarily learning alongside others during the lockdown and the school closures. And then we didn't see any changes in self-concept then later on from 4th class up to 6th class, but we did see a difference between boys and girls. And when we looked at that, so boys' self-concept overall was higher than girls. And we looked at the different subjects. We looked at literacy and numeracy, and boys were definitely rating themselves as being higher and better in their academic self-concept relating to maths compared to girls, which might be reflected in that difference there. And then I've just a couple more slides to go. But just to say, most schools in 2021, almost all, were using some sort of a programme or wellbeing intervention or support for children's wellbeing within their class. And that did drop then in 2023 to around 3/4 of teachers. So we think that in 2021 it was a response to the COVID context and the fact that children may have needed additional support then when they rejoined school. And that was why those programmes were so commonly used. A child there talks about what it is like to learn about feelings in school and reflects on just, the programme and how it might have helped her. And then we had a boy also talk about his experience of talking about feelings in school and about how it's actually good to talk about your feelings and it's not embarrassing. Because if people know how you feel, then they're able to help you. So real emotional intelligence being demonstrated there among a 2nd class boy in a DEIS school. But interestingly, many teachers talked very positively about their experiences of wellbeing and using wellbeing supports within their school. But other teachers also talked about it's a complex issue, and sometimes you use resources that aren't suitable for your context, and sometimes maybe it may be more of a tick box exercise rather than actually being effective. I'm just mindful of time, which is why I'm trying to get through these quickly. Then one of my last slides here is just around some data that we collected from adults. Now, we were prioritising children's views, but we did ask adults as well about the school climate, and nearly all adult participants felt that teachers in the school were helpful and friendly and reported that teachers and children enjoyed school. And in the graph here, the data that we have is reports from children on 2 items within our questionnaire, which are all children are treated with respect in my class and all children have the same chance to do well. And it was really positive to see that most children, so over 80% or between 80 and 90% of children reported that teachers were respectful, were fair. But again, as time went on, the percentage decreased ever so slightly. So older children are maybe not having the same sort of experiences maybe, or become maybe disillusioned as time goes on. So just a few concluding comments. We found, and this is overall, that I wasn't able to present all of the data, but this is just what we generally concluded from our in our report. So children in Irish primary schools most often feel happy, feel good about themselves, feel cared for and feel safe. These positive emotions tend to decrease as children move up through primary school, and interviews with the children suggested that friendship issues and worries about being successful in school were some of their main causes of worry and anxiety. Teachers reported low levels of emotional difficulties among children in their classes and talk about efforts that they make to create a climate for well-being in their class. Children reported very positive feelings about school and learning, but as we mentioned, there was a decrease in some of those dimensions over time. Friendships are a key source of happiness and support in school, but also a source of stress, and bullying seemed to be relatively frequent. Girls tend to report more positive feelings about school than boys, but also tend to be more anxious about their schoolwork and their friendships. Now, it may suggest a gender difference, but may also be possible that girls and boys differ in terms of what they want to tell the researcher or how they want to report some of these things. So there may not necessarily be a gender difference. It may be more so a gender reporting difference. And then we're very cognizant that there are a number of also other factors that influences on children's daily experiences and may mediate those experiences. And we have reports that are currently teasing all of that out in terms of social class, socioeconomic background, ethnicity and gender. So just to end with an acknowledgement that the funder, NCCA, provided all the resources and support for all of this project. The CSL team and fieldwork team, as I mentioned earlier, have been a crucial part of it, and also then the schools that participated all over the years, particularly the children who spent so much time with our researchers as well. So just to acknowledge all of them. There's some web links to some of the resources or documents that are referred to earlier. And also just to say, these are the reports that we've produced that are on our website right now. Number 7, Wellbeing in Irish Primary Schools, is where I took a lot of the content from for this. And we've just, in the last couple of weeks, released the Equalities report that focused on social background. We have a report coming out very soon on gender, and then one on ethnicities. We'll have one next year on inclusion and SEN. We're going to have one looking at academic attainment and learning outcomes, and then one on the transition to second level. So do keep an eye on our website or just get in touch. We'd love to hear from you. So I think that's my last slide. So thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ava, and I'd like to welcome our panellists to the chairs, please. If you'd like to come on up, that would be fantastic. And then I'll introduce everyone. Okay, fab. So I'm delighted to welcome you to our panel discussion on inclusive practices in education. As we face new social and cultural dynamics, the conversation has never been more urgent. Education plays a key role in breaking cycles of disadvantage, and school is where it starts. Our panel, led by Amanda Ade, will explore the critical importance of prioritizing what can sometimes be uncomfortable conversations. Amanda Ade, creative director, public speaker, writer, and activist. After completing her studies in analytical chemistry, her passion for people and creating change led her to transition into the world of activism and social justice issues, using creative media to spark important discussions. And joining Amanda here are our 3 panelists. Francesca Morgia, founder and director of Mother Tongues, an organization working to promote multilingualism and intercultural dialogue in Ireland. Mother Tongues was awarded a European language label for their project Language Explorers by Lergis in 2024. Francesca has an MPhil in Applied Linguistics from Trinity College Dublin and a PhD in Bilingual Language Acquisition from DCU. She has lectured in language development across various universities, holding posts at the University of Reading, Trinity College Dublin, Ulster University, and Maynooth University. Femi Bankole, co-founder and executive director of Black and Irish, a social platform aimed at celebrating the successes and highlighting the struggles of Black and Irish people. Femi is a presenter on RTE's Black and Irish podcast, which provides commentary around race and culture in Ireland. He is a member on the board of directors for the charity A Lust for Life, and he is also a member on the expert advisory group to the Digital Repository of Ireland. And our final panellist, Laura Soylan, is a teacher in St. Aidan's Community School, a secondary school in Tala. Laura has a PhD from DCU, where her research focused on creating online resources for teachers in order to integrate digital skills into curricula and impact digital inequality. Laura is currently seconded to IJA, the support service for teachers and school leaders in Ireland. So following our discussion, as Una mentioned earlier, we'll open the floor to some questions. And if you're joining us online, you're also welcome to ask us a question and we'll announce it to the room. So I'll now hand over the mic to Amanda to begin our discussion.
Thank you very much, Eva. Hi, everyone. How are you doing? Yeah, I guess just to start off the panel discussion, I guess the theme of today is inclusive practices in education, and I think it's so apt because I think in recent times there's been such an emphasis on diversity and creating diverse spaces, and not much thought has been put into the inclusion aspect of things and making sure that every student, every person that's in this space feels like they can bring their authentic selves into those spaces and they can actually voice their opinions and be heard and feel seen. So, kind of speaking to that, I'm just going to open up the floor to you guys. I suppose, just off the bat, what do you think are the most significant challenges that schools face when trying to create an inclusive environment? Because it's hard. It's hard to do. But what are the challenges that are faced there? Don't all speak at once.
I'll start from a very practical point of view. I know in our school, I was saying to the guys when we were chatting outside in the last year, we had an influx of maybe 125 students coming from different countries, Ukraine and further afield. But the main thing was language, that the fact that maybe we had 15, 20 new languages in school, and how are students able to integrate into the school community when nobody's speaking the same language, and when the teachers aren't able to speak the language of the students? It makes it, in order to facilitate that kind of inclusion, then I think that's a really practical kind of problem that's difficult for schools to manage at the moment.
Yeah, I would say, it's kind of like in the question, as you said, we're seeing increased diversity within the schools, within the population of students. But what we still have, unfortunately, in Ireland nowadays, the teaching population themselves are still quite homogenous. How, if you're consistently having, children of different ethnicities, lived experiences, and that's not really represented within the people who are educating them, that I see is kind of like a quite an issue at this point in time. Couple of points on maybe how we could address that as such. I think maybe in Ireland, access to becoming a teacher, I think some like the stipulations you'd have, whether around, having like Irish as a minimum requirement, which although is kind of like really important, might be seen as a barrier to entry for, teachers who come from like overseas or immigrants who could really, really have an understanding of this ever-changing, diversifying student population within the schools.
Yeah.
I agree in the sense there's an element of representation, like you're saying.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But definitely also having teachers who have potentially that lived experience of even having to live in another place and finding yourself in a school where it's not only language issues, but also the way you were doing things before are now not very useful anymore. So you have to learn a whole new set of skills, like socializing in certain ways that might be different in the country where you were living before. And I think that if some teachers even in school had that experience of finding themselves in that difficult situation where you don't know what's going on around you, then even suddenly that experience is very, very useful, as well as the language, the cultural competency aspect, which are also very important.
No, absolutely. And I'm going to bring it back to you, Femi. We've kind of spoken about some of the challenges there, but what are any like specific initiatives or practices that like schools can implement to foster this kind of like an inclusive environment?
Yeah, well, first thing I'll say is obviously I'm not a teacher, but I do understand it's a very under-resourced, high-pressured environment. And, the first thing we need to do is maybe empower teachers with more resources, with more time, or with more kind of either, within the curriculum, either making it like less restrictive or more prescriptive to really enable them to have the time to, to give to these initiatives. The second thing is, I think the ethos, I think it's one of it's the Educate Together schools, that their ethos is that, no one, so let me get this right. Every child has equal access to education, and no one worldview or religion takes preference, right? And now I don't know how much that's knitted within represented within the schools themselves, but that's the foundation, the ethos that they run the schools by, right? And what that does is it kind of like creates a space where we're not kind of like bound by religion or different initiatives, and every kind of like student or ethnicity can feel themselves represented, right? An initiative you can have is like, sometimes schools are like, oh, we'll have like a cultural day where we'll try to engross quite a lot of, ethnicities or cultures within a specific day, which is great, but sometimes maybe isn't enough. So when you're kind of like using the ethos of Educate Together schools, you're kind of like, all year round, like trying to like celebrating other kind of like ethnical kind of cultures, whether it's like Diwali, whether it's the Latin American kind of holidays or the African ones, really like creating like space and time for all kind of like ethnicities or minorities within your classrooms to feel represented, but also kind of like for like the non-minorities, or again, opening them up to kind of like, embrace and interact with different cultures, whilst in that sense also open up their worldview as well. So it's not necessarily, not to not answer the question, it's not necessarily kind of like specific initiatives. It's kind of like, how do we knit this into everyday life within the school to really, really have an effect on the students.
That's good. Anyone else have any thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Femi. It can't just be kind of a one-off sort of, the whole multicultural days are nice and they introduce kids to different concepts and ideas, and they can be a real celebration of different cultures within the school. I think more long-term sort of integrated practices maybe are needed, including resourcing schools more with time and money and training in how to create inclusive environments, and also bringing about representation in the different curricula. Like I was saying earlier, I'm an English teacher, and in the text that we study, there isn't great representation across the board. We're studying, maybe a homogenous sort of a group of writers. I can't speak to English or art, I can't speak to art or music or anything like that. But I'll give an example of something from my own school that's been going on for maybe 20 years. We've seen kind of two big waves of immigration and maybe new students into the school. But years ago, we could kind of see this sort of segregation kind of naturally happening. So they set up a music group called Lekela, which obviously means together. And Lekela, it's fab, but they meet every week, and the idea initially was that it would bring in music kind of traditions from all over the world, or kids would bring their own musical traditions, and they kind of would take songs and they'd interpret them in their own way. And that was a way to really support kind of inclusivity in the school. And I think about 15 or maybe 16 years later, it's still going strong, and now there's maybe different nationalities and different students in there, but it's something like that can be maybe extracurricular and long-term, I think, is really positive.
That's really good. I'm going to come to you, Francesca. Something that Laura actually kind of spoke on a little bit is, students speaking a different language at home versus, in school. And I guess the question I'm asking is, how can we, what tools are there, let's say, for teachers to be able to promote a diverse linguistic practice within the classroom?
Well, first of all, I think it's worth stressing the fact that children who speak more than one language are the majority in the world in general. So growing up speaking 2 languages is more common than just growing up speaking 1. And so I do believe it would be so much more important to embed all of this knowledge into early teacher education, because every teacher will find themselves in primary or secondary with children who not only have grown up speaking 2 or more languages, but also might be coming at a different, at 7 or 10 or 12 into the school, having their own linguistic background and knowledge, and learning English and Irish in the school. And there are some resources that we've developed as mother tongues, which are available on our website, videos where teachers talk about what they do, also toolkits and other resources that also parents can access. But I suppose I go back to what we said previously, and I have really interesting data earlier about the attitudes to learning Irish, for example, and something similar happens also in secondary school. How valuable do students feel French is to them or German is to them? Do they feel they'll use it? But what happens also I've seen in other reports is that a lot of children have really strong skills in their home languages, let's call them, or heritage languages, when they're young. And then as primary school starts, these skills start to kind of deteriorate, because English takes such huge priority in socializing, obviously. So the more you speak to your mates in English, the more your English gets stronger. And parents sometimes come to us as mother tongues to say, well, I don't know what to do anymore because my language is fading away and English is becoming so much more important. So schools really have a very important role there at any level in telling students, actually, this skill that you have in Lithuanian, Yoruba, Urdu, you name it, is very important. It's very important for you as an individual, but also we believe it's important in our school. And the only way to show that is not just to say it, as that's the first step, is to embed these languages in your day-to-day. Whether that's a geography project, whether that's a politics project, whether you're reading some literature and asking students to do some work in their home languages, something really practical needs to be done in more commonly. And we go back to lack of resources, lack of time, lack of training. I'm not saying, yes, let's do this from tomorrow, but this is so, so important. And it's so common that this is not a minority that we're talking about, that, okay, it's a bit of extra thing that we have to do. It's something that should, in the primary school curriculum, it's already part of the curriculum. You have to make the most of the children's home languages. And as mother tongues, we always try to provide training, provide more resources, because we know there's need for extra support at this point. But it is something that is not just about validating the home language and saying, oh, it's so great. It's giving all languages the same status, so that it's not, oh, you're so great because you speak Spanish. Yes, it's so great, but also every other language in the classroom needs to be seen as equally important in the eyes of the children and everyone, teachers especially. So that's my take on it.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Do you want to go? No? Oh, I was really interested in what the answer to this was going to be, or like what were going to be the insights into this question, because I suppose I'm looking at the question here, like the tools to promote linguistic diversity. I never thought about it from that angle, because I think a lot of teachers now are in classes where there is huge linguistic diversity in the class, and you're thinking, how do I teach a class where maybe I have 6 different languages in front of me? Maybe I have a student speaking Lithuanian, Yoruba, Ukrainian, Russian, Urdu, Hindi, whatever, and then you're trying to deliver a curriculum in between that, and it's extremely difficult. So it's nice to reframe it in that way and think that, yeah, these languages are vital and important and should be celebrated, but then I'm not sure that the tools and training are there in initial teacher education, to help deal with it, or it certainly wasn't when I was training anyway. It's not anything I ever looked at, and I think, Ireland is so multicultural now, it looks so different to how it did 30 years ago, that's really important to be made.
And we often speak about languages when they're a problem, more so than when, you know, in a lot of classes we have children who speak Spanish and Urdu at home, but because they don't seem to have a problem with English, we can simply forget that, because usually we talk about languages when there's an English language issue.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier about the Young Interpreter Scheme, which is a project in the UK where some students are asked to support the newcomers because they have the language skills, and they get awarded, they get an award for having put time and effort into acting as a bridge, a linguistic bridge. So there are ideas in the day-to-day that can help also with the English language support, because teachers can do it all if they have so many different languages and so many different levels.
Yeah, it's kind of fascinating.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to bring it back to you, Laura.
Okay.
So, you know, there's fantastic initiatives like, you know, EU initiatives like Erasmus Plus and eTwinning, and I think they do a lot to, I suppose, just really like stir the cultural competency, I think, or just like develop the cultural competency within students. But what ways could these programs contribute to fostering inclusivity within education as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, I think from the very outset, they introduce students to other cultures where maybe they haven't been, or more than introduce, they immerse students in other cultures. And I found in my own school where we've taken part in a number of Erasmus Plus projects, and I've led them and brought students away. And especially it being kind of an area of socioeconomic disadvantage, like we have brought students for their first trip outside of Ireland. And even though they have kids from all over the world, like in their class, the experience of going to a different country and living with the family, even for 4 or 5 days in a week, is just, you know, the value of that is immeasurable in introducing students to different cultures, different ideas, and taking away the idea kind of the other, you know. I think that if you're immersed in a family and a school and a friendship group of another, you know, in another country for a week or so, then, you know, you're getting to see the differences, but you're also becoming extremely aware of the similarities, you know, and that can take away a little bit of a fear of the unknown or whatever. So I think from a straightforward point of view like that, the mobilities are really useful in that respect. Thinking about a project that we did in our school a good few years ago, and because St. Aidan's is so multicultural, and a lot of the schools that we'd visited, you know, the school population was quite homogenous. That was actually those students coming to St. Aidan's who really had an experience of meeting students from all over the world and developing that sort of cultural competency. In terms of fostering inclusivity in education, as I said, we've had a huge influx of students from different countries in the last year, and we applied last year for an Erasmus Plus project to train teachers in the area. So to train teachers in the area of inclusivity and diversity, and, you know, how we can foster it within our classrooms. So that's underway at the moment, where teachers are taking part in training to try and bring that back into the classroom. But I think another way that it can kind of foster inclusivity is that there is time and funding and ideas and thought put into how we can, maybe just going back to language for a minute, how we can find kind of common languages that link students, so, and teachers, because we spoke there about music, but maybe art or digital technology, sport, woodwork, these practical things where maybe you don't need to all be speaking the same language, but in taking part in them, you know, you can find yourself more included in a class or in an activity or within a group. So I think Erasmus Plus and eTwinning provides space and money and resources for that to happen. Yeah, and hopefully then, you know, disseminate it back among schools and within the educational community. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe you guys have.
No, I think they're so important. I think when we first started Black and Irish, we collated like a lot of information from like people like myself and, you know, kind of like older people of colour about kind of like their racial experiences in life, and like, you know, where was the first time you experienced racism, or where was the time you experienced the most racism. And a lot of that was actually like in primary school and secondary school, right? The importance of programs like this is kind of like opening up the classroom and the students to like a different worldview, you know, interact with other ethnicities, which in turn minimizes or reduces kind of like maybe like poorly misjudged racial comments, be like, oh my God, what type of food are you eating? What's that? Well, that smells bad. What's this about your hair? When you're really exposed to different cultures earlier on, automatically then you're having less and less of those questions, and you're then less likely to inflict maybe traumatic experiences onto kind of like, you know, other people in your classroom. As you said again, all throughout this talk, you know, there's increase in diversity within the student population. So it's so fundamentally important. Programs like this can have like further downstream effects on kind of like the quality of experiences for ethnic minorities within the classrooms.
All good? Okay, so we're going to move on to the final question then. It's kind of open to anyone that wants to jump in first, and then we'll open up to the floor for some questions. So inclusivity is closely tied to students' overall well-being. You know, as feeling accepted and supported in schools is fundamental to mental and emotional health. So given what we've discussed so far about fostering inclusive environments, what do we need more of right now to ensure that all students feel a sense of belonging and are supported both academically and emotionally in their school communities? So it's a long question.
Yeah.
I'm having to read it here to make sure I'm keeping up.
I think I can give maybe a slightly short answer. I think we've all acknowledged here in kind of our different roles that there's immense pressure and under-resourcing on teachers, okay? So I'm looking higher above, okay? It's like, what can we put in place? There's either, as I said, like less restrictive or more restrictive to help teachers kind of like foster a more sense of inclusivity within the classrooms, whereas we're not kind of like relying on teachers to be, what's the word I'm going to use there, like woke or really into diversity and inclusion or have like a real interest in it. It's like, what can we put in place within the curriculum to really take the pressure off? That's what I would see is maybe like as a good starting point for that. Yeah.
I think, okay, I know that it says right now, but I do think there has to be more representation maybe within the teaching community so that students can, you know, I think you said earlier, like, so that those teachers can have an understanding of what students might be feeling in the class. Like, I'm an Irish person, born both parents Irish, you know, there's absolutely no diversity in here. But I would find it very hard to put myself in the place of a young person who's maybe just come from Ukraine or just come from Nigeria, or, you know, is in a really new and maybe difficult environment, you know. And I think that promoting teacher training among minority communities would be really something interesting. Like, I've been teaching for about 20 years, and I'm going like through kids in my head here, and I can think of maybe one student from a minority who's become a teacher and is teaching now, you know, and I think it's important to foster that within schools. But I'm looking at the question here to see more of right now. I think more training, more money, more investment in schools and in supporting teachers and supporting students in order to feel included in their environments,
Well, I'm kind of thinking of the word belonging from this question, because I feel belonging is not something that you can fabricate for everyone in the same way. So I think children and young people need to feel that they are contributing to the classroom community, to what goes on in the school. And I'm thinking for some of my children, what worked in kind of moving from one place to the other, which is what we did, was sport. And what that made them feel, oh yes, I'm good at this, I can do this, and I'm part of a team. And I'm kind of giving my skills to the success of this team. And the same can happen in other areas, could be art, could be, you know, within the school community. And belonging to me means that you are feeling that what you do, what you say, what you are, is not necessarily different from what is needed, is what is needed to make a group. So for me, fostering this inclusive environment means allowing all children to express themselves and to feel that the way they express themselves, whether it's artistically or physically or with sport or with their achievement in the subjects, is valid, and it's valid across the board in the school. And I think this really links, at least with the work that we've been doing, we really see the link between this and well-being. So when you feel that you're part of what's going on in the school and what you do is appreciated, you feel like you belong, you feel good about yourself. So your well-being is enhanced because of that. So from a language point of view, of course, for us, that's really important. And that's why we kind of focus so much on language, which is our kind of baby, because we feel, sometimes it's enough for someone to bring in a project in Chinese to the classroom and feel that they can speak in front of everybody in Chinese, and all their mates are clapping, and they're like, yeah, they're appreciating what I'm doing, and what we do at home is not to be ashamed of. It's it's part of the place we live in. So,
and I think the more students do that as well, you know, that maybe they're proudly showing off their culture and it's being celebrated and appreciated by their classmates. I think that's empowering as well. You know, I'm thinking of one student in my school last year who. Oh my God, he literally just arrived in the school only about 2 weeks beforehand, immediately joined the Kayla. And then there was some sort of showcase on during the week. Now, this is obviously a very confident young man. And the whole school was watching, got up, did a dance and kind of a number with a load of other kids. Unbelievable. He was just so confident in himself and his culture and what he was good at, that he got up, kind of presented it to the whole school, and like kind of the feedback he got was like, oh my God, you're amazing, from kids all over the school. Like, he was so celebrated, and I could see then how that could feed in to the other students. They were like, well, if he can do it, or if he can show this, you know, I can do it too. It was beautiful, you know, and yeah, being able to celebrate in that way is then impactful on other students, I think.
and I think also you're talking about a school that is highly diverse. But
Yes,
I think some of these
would be very
initiatives
difficult.
are also very important in schools that only have very few students who come from diverse backgrounds, because that you feel even more different and isolated potentially.
But even thinking back, I think some of my own personal, you know, like highlight moments were moments like that, were moments where, you know, that like the diversity or the thing that, you know, initially might have been a thing of insecurity was then celebrated. So I think they're so important, and it's so important that we kind of foster those kind of environments as well. So I suppose then, I think we're talking about like, but talking about diversity and inclusion, I know a lot of the time we tend to forget that it's actually a two-way street. So the way I like to think about it is like diversity is like being asked to a dance, and inclusion is like being asked to dance. So actually, you know, taking the initiative to bring people and invite people out onto the dance floor. And, you know, I suppose just on that note, with that in mind, I think it's so important that and I think it's great that we're actually having these conversations, and it's actually something that's, you know, intentionally being spoken about. Because for me, I know I would have, you know, loved something like this when I was in school. So I think, this is great that we're having these conversations. So on that note, opening up the floor to anyone that has any other questions or prompts.
Hi, I'm Grania. I'm a primary teacher, and we have 1,000 pupils. I have 22 children in my class, and I have 14 different countries represented out of 22 children. So we have about 12 languages. My question is, have you any suggestions? How do we encourage a variety of backgrounds into teaching? Because I know about 4 different teachers from different cultures. That's it. And I'm open to a lot of different experiences like this and whatever, and I still only know about 4 teachers from different backgrounds. So how are we going to encourage those 6 years filling out the CEOs? If you have any ideas.
Do you want to go for
It's
it?
$1 million question, isn't it?
Well, I'm aware of some programs. The Migrant Teacher Project, I think that's primarily focused at secondary, that's my understanding. But there's an issue, obviously, with the recognition of qualifications. Not an issue, but something that, obviously, you have to go through certain steps to have your qualification recognized. So I know, personally, a lot of primary school teachers from Brazil, from Argentina, who are preschool teachers now here, because it's a lot easier to become a preschool teacher than going off and doing your Irish exams and all of that. So sometimes you need a job straight away. you can't be going through the whole education system once again when you're actually qualified. So there are projects that are addressing that. There is also obviously second generation, if you like, if you know, those children that maybe I might be talking about, we were talking about, they finish school here, they can speak multiple languages, they look more like the children in the classrooms. How do they decide that they want to become teachers? Again, it's representation, I feel. Maybe you can talk more about it.
Yeah, well, it's difficult because yes, it's representation, and it's, you know, how do we position the role of a teacher to be kind of that want students to want to like attain and be like that. And that's so difficult because it might be like, I might have had like a great teacher in third class, Mr. Ford, and I loved him. I was like, you know, it's like, I want to be like him. But sometimes that's really difficult if you're like a black kid and don't see any black teachers. So it's like, well, how can I want to be like him when I don't see myself in him? But in saying that as well, we're also kind of like still early on as such as a country within like our diversity journey, kind of like mass influx of immigrants as such has been over the last like 20, 25 years. So a lot of that can also just be addressed naturally over time as well. Like there's back when I was in school, I don't know, whenever, a long time ago, there's more ethnic minority teachers right now. So it just might be like, you know, again, like people like our age, Amanda's age, kind of like going through the system and wanting to be that change as well. So I'm hoping with either remove some barriers to entry for kind of like immigrants coming in, and with kind of like the students going through the system, we can bridge that gap hopefully in the near future.
Yeah, I wonder, is it a systemic thing? Because I know when the war in Ukraine broke out and we had a lot of students come from Ukraine and very welcome in our school, but there was barriers removed immediately for teachers coming in from Ukraine. So we ended up with 2 teachers who were from Ukraine, which made everything so much easier because the students really did not speak English. It was extremely hard to communicate with them, but at least we had Miss Barry who was able to come and, you know, who was able to translate when necessary, you know. So, yeah, a removal of some of those barriers at a systemic level, I think, is necessary as well, yeah.
I know, and I was listening to the radio, so I wasn't paying that much attention. I think it was DCU, you might be able to correct me. They were doing hubs for attracting teachers from different socio-demographics. Yeah, so that what I understood from the radio, now this is me reporting something I heard, but it was hubs in certain areas where they knew there was very little uptake from that community to become teachers. And of course, also the teaching is very, well, primary teaching, say, is quite homogeneous also from a socio-economic point of view. So it's middle class people going to become teachers. So they were addressing it this way. So it is possible to do it if someone puts their mind to it. It's like it's an action. That's a positive action. So it's a matter of making that, having a purpose and putting in effort into it in early primary teaching education in that case, or getting people to then sign up and study that subject.
100%, yes. I think it boils down to intentionality, like you were saying, and I think similar to what you were saying as well, I think just putting policies in place that are people-proof, I suppose, and, you know. Any other questions? Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Carol. I'm teaching in a very diverse school in Cork. And this discussion has raised 2 things for me. First of all, I met a student the other day from a school in Kerry, and it was my first time hearing that they have Polish for Leaving Cert. They have a Polish teacher, and they're teaching Polish, which I think is really groundbreaking, because I teach a language, and I think a lot of language teachers would be afraid that the Polish teacher is going to take all the students from that language in the school. So that I think it's really interesting that they're embracing that language, because they need a language for a lot of courses in university. So they're embracing the Polish students in the school, and they're going to be able to access university that way. So that's the first point. It's not really a question, but I just think it's an interesting discussion. And the second thing is, in my school, I've been trying to open the Erasmus program to children from different backgrounds, from Africa and from Asia. And I'm finding it really difficult to encourage those students to sign up, because they feel they couldn't open their home as a host family. And I'd like to hear just how can I encourage that? I know that we can stay in a youth hostel, but then we're not experiencing the host family part of Erasmus. So I'd like to hear just maybe if people have suggestions for how we could encourage the students from different backgrounds to sign up. They're not signing up, unfortunately.
Yeah, we had that situation in our schools a good few years ago now, but very diverse population. The students who were most keen to get involved with Erasmus were our students from minorities, and they really wanted to, they felt they really wanted to welcome people into their homes as students, but parents weren't quite so on board. So kids did have to stay in a hostel, but every day they went home with the student and they stayed there and they had dinner and so on, and then they came back to the school and they went back to the hostel. So even though they weren't sleeping overnight, they were going back, they were hanging out with them and their friends in the estate or whatever, and then they were having dinner or sharing a meal with the family and then going back to the hostel. Yeah, so it wasn't ideal, but it was a way around it, and it did immerse them in kind of family life for the week that they were here. A bit like what you said earlier, that's probably something that will change over time as it becomes more the norm, maybe, if it is the norm in your school to do Erasmus projects and have host families. Yeah, maybe. That's how we got around it at the time anyway.
Any other thoughts? No? Okay, I'm just conscious of the time, so we'll probably just wrap it up. So thank you to our panellists. We'll give them a hand, please. Thank you very much. I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a really insightful discussion. I'm conscious of time, so we're just going to move on to the final part of our session this morning, which is our award ceremony for the National Quality Label and European Innovative Teaching Awards. The National Quality Label is awarded to teachers whose eTwinning projects achieve a very high European standard of excellence in areas of collaboration, use of technology, original pedagogical approaches, curricular integration and dissemination. In 2024, we had 15 winning teachers in Ireland with 21 different eTwinning projects. So we'd like to invite every teacher, I'll call you out one by one, to the stage to accept your award from Deirdre. Yeah. Okay.
Get me to stand. Yeah, good. Avoid the coats.
So I'm not sure if everyone is here in person, but Carol Finn, Middleton CBS.
We get a photo.
Yeah. Congratulations. Sonia McCarthy, Coláiste Dúníoscaigh. Is she here this morning? Maybe not. No. Okay. Vicky Malcolm from King's Hospital School. Jessica de los Reyes Jimenez Godoy and David Jimenez from CBS West County.
Congratulations.
And Ronan O'Sullivan from Davis College, Mallow.
She's rustling, she's fine. It's there, we know it.
Okay, and there's some of our award winners joining us online this morning as well. So we have Maeve O'Sullivan from Coláiste Ciaráin, Cecilia Gavigan from Balbriggan Educate Together National School, Laura Canna from St Patrick's Infants National School, Bríd O'Malley from Coláiste Pobal Acla, Gloria Enrique from Sacred Heart Secondary, Marianne Cairns from St George's National School, Aoife Lynch and Niamh McKenna from St Ronan's National School, Aoife Hegarty from UCC, and Melanie Henry from Middleton College. So congratulations. And Next, we'll move on to the European Innovative Teaching Awards. So this award showcases outstanding teaching practices and innovative learning methods carried out as part of Erasmus Plus projects. In 2024, EITA centres around the theme of well-being at school. So we'd like to share a video of each winner, just a short 1-minute video, before we invite everyone to come up and accept their award. So the first is our primary school winner, school-education.ec.europa.eu from Portarlington in County Laois.
Our project is called Serving the Diverse Needs of Our Students Through Upskilling in Mindfulness and Wellbeing. We looked at the needs in our school and saw a huge need for emotional regulation. We researched our project and did a mindfulness and wellbeing course with Cultivating Futures in Lisbon in Portugal, where we learned about the importance of mindfulness, how it's used to improve relationships, increase focus and attention with the students. We feel our project is innovative because we have not just focused on that project, but we have developed it on that we can continue it into the future. Winning this award is great recognition for all the dedication and hard work of our staff here in school-education. Our SNAs have played a huge part in developing this project as they work with small groups and can provide targeted interventions such as sensory regulation for the boys. A huge thank you to Lergas here in Ireland and the European Commission. Without the support and funding, this project would never have been possible.
On behalf of school-education.ec, and congratulations if you're watching on the live stream. Okay. Our second winner is the secondary school winner, Coláiste Mura Maher from Galway, for their project Wellness in Our Ladies College, Arach agus Suanis. So we'll watch their video.
There was a number of different facets to our project. One of them was learning techniques to get students and staff to relax, to, I suppose, deal with maybe students that would be finding difficulty with their mental health, and to help them to make school a nicer place for them to be. Our project was innovative because it was the first one that happened in Galway, and I suppose the theme of wellness was just coming into schools as part of the curriculum, and we felt that it was one that we could bring into the wider community and use with our students and staff.
Well, it's an actual tremendous honour for a school on the west coast of Ireland to actually win this. Great honour for my colleagues, for ourselves, for our teaching, for our innovative ways that we make the curriculum alive for our pupils. We are actually delighted to receive this award, and we would like to thank all the people involved who chose us. So thank you from the west of Ireland.
So Mila will be accepting the award again for Coláiste Mura Maher. And finally, we have our Vet College winner. This is Ofiach Institute of Further Education, County Louth, for their project Erasmus Ofiach Institute of Further Education 2022.
Our project was an Erasmus Plus short-term mobility for learners, which gave us the opportunity to take 30 learners to a city, Malaga in Spain in our case, to work and live for a period of 2 weeks.
Going to Malaga on Erasmus was probably one of the best experiences I've had so far. Do you know what? There's a whole world out there, and being able to experience it and knowing that there's all this going on for your personal growth, your social growth, your cultural growth, it's really something that I'm so proud I've partaken in.
Winning this award means so much to us as a college. It means so much to me personally as the coordinator, and it means so much to the teachers who work so hard on it. It also means so much to the students who don't know about it yet, but will. And it will be there for future students to see and try to aspire to as we move forward with our Erasmus experience.
So we'd like to invite John Carraher to the stage to accept this award.
Thanks very much. And I do have 2 shorts.
Congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Brilliant. Okay.
Thank you.
So congratulations to all of our NQL and EITA winners. And thank you all very much for your attention this morning. That's the end of this morning's session. So we'll have a short coffee break now in the foyer, and then the workshops will begin at 12. The agenda will be up here on the screen if you need to come back and find your room, but the rooms are also marked with a little poster outside so you know where you're going. Thank you very much. We'll see you again.
Hi, Bríd.
Hi, Jean.
Thank you. Oh, I'm just going to pause the recording just for a moment, so just bear with me.
Okay.
Audience, we're glad to have you here with us today, and Bríd and Carl are going to take you through this workshop. So how it's going to work is, I believe, ladies, you both have presentations. When it comes to asking questions from the audience, you have two options. So you can use that Q&A feature again, like before, to pop a question in, or there's now an option to raise your hand. So at the bottom of your screen, there should be an option to raise hand if you wish to ask a question, or as I said, you can put in the into the Q&A, or there's three dots if you don't see the raise hand function. And if you do raise your hand, Bríd or Carl, we will be able to unmute you and let you ask that question, but I'll explain that if we see the hands popping up. But right now, Bríd and Carl, I am going to leave it over to you, ladies. So just unmute yourselves.
Great, thanks so much, Jean. Welcome everybody. I'm just going to share my screen. Hopefully you can see that okay. Yeah.
That's perfect, Carl. If you just pop it into presentation mode, please, for us.
Yeah. Okay, great. There we go. So I'm going to start off talking about Erasmus Plus and the mobilities and the opportunities available at schools. And then I'll hand over to Bríd, who is going to talk about her experience and eTwinning as well. So Erasmus Plus runs from 2021 to 2027, and it's all about enriching lives and opening minds through the EU programme. It's for education, training, youth and sport. And there's a budget of 26.2 billion, which 70% of that is dedicated to mobility projects, which we will be focusing on today. There are four key priorities of Erasmus Plus, so inclusion and diversity, reaching out to all participants, and fostering inclusive approaches for mobility and cooperation activities. So green as well, building up knowledge on sustainability and climate action and promoting the use of green travel. Digital, developing accessible and high quality digital learning and fostering digital capacities. And active participation, which is enhancing participation in democratic life and civic engagement. The eligible countries that can take part in Erasmus Plus are the 27 member states of the EU, as well as third countries associated to the programme, such as North Macedonia, Serbia, Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway, and Turkey. So the opportunities available to schools. So staff can take part in job shadowing, where you go to a school abroad and observe their practices in their school and their classrooms. Teaching assignments, where you spend a period abroad teaching. And course and training, where you do various courses for CPD training. Pupils can also take part in mobility projects, so they can take part in group mobility of school pupils, short-term learning mobility of pupils, and long-term learning mobility. And there's also other activities such as invited experts, where you can invite somebody to your school to teach about a certain topic or theme. So for example, if your project was on Wellbeing, you can invite a yoga expert into your school to teach yoga or mindfulness practices. You can also host teachers in training, and prep visits are also part of your mobility projects. Just some things to note about short-term projects. The duration is from 6 to 18 months, so you pick the duration whatever best suits your school. The maximum number of mobilities per application is 30. So that means that 30 people can take part in one project. The next deadline for applications will be February 2025. And we're also having an online information session on the 20th of November. You can click the link there to register for that. And that will be recorded as well, and we'll be sending it out after that session. I have two short case studies just so you can get an idea of what a mobility project looks like. So this project was called Sustainability at the Seashore. They received a budget of 47,860, and they were taking part in job shadowing, courses and training, and group mobility of pupils. So their objectives
was to for children to observe and explore ways in which features of the natural environment affect the lives of plants, animals, and humans, to create a series of cross-curricular lessons for each class that can be used regularly at our local beach, and to become a European Blue School and enhance our European identity, and to promote digital skills and competencies in the classroom and in our wider school community. So that project is still ongoing, so we don't have any results of that project yet, but I thought it was an interesting one to share for this. The other case study we have was called Reconnecting Students and Staff with the Outdoors to Improve Social and Emotional Skills. Smaller budget of 18,240, and they just took part in courses and training for staff. Their objectives was to provide teachers with the skills to use outdoor education as a method to teach our current primary school curriculum and offer another learning context, to design a whole school plan with a spiral structure to develop outdoor education starting in junior infants and working their way up through the school to 6th class. To educate management in an effective design and implementation of outdoor education programs. So this project finished up recently, and their results was that the school has developed a pack of sample lessons to help staff who are just getting to terms with outdoor education, and management have seen the benefits of outdoor education and have transformed the outdoor area so that the staff and students can do a little bit more of outdoor learning. The next steps for you, if you're interested in applying for Erasmus+, you can register for our online information session. You can register for your organisation ID. So that is just an identification number for your school, and you'll need that in order to apply. And if you want to check out more projects, you can look at the Erasmus Plus results platform for previously funded projects. So you can see the kind of common themes that other schools have taken part in and what courses they've done. And that's from all of Europe as well. So you can see all the different projects from across Europe. So that's all from me. I'll stop sharing, Bríd, so you can take over then.
Okay, thanks, Caroline. I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted to be invited to the 4th eTwinning conference. I'm a teacher, so I'm going to give my experience of eTwinning and Erasmus to date. Now, I'm a primary school teacher, so it may not be so relevant to post-primary, but it's interesting. My journey is interesting. I'm a primary school teacher and principal of a very rural school in West Mayo, and I'm also a special education teacher in that school. Very invested in well-being, and that's the whole ethos of behind eTwinning and Erasmus Plus just embraces well-being. We have seen so many benefits, so I'll take you through our journey. And let me see, I'm going to just share my little presentation here, if I can. So, oops, I am. Okay. So let me move on. So the eTwinning and Erasmus journey of a rural Jesh primary school in the west of Ireland. Back in 2017, we, given our remote area, I suppose, we don't have opportunities to travel or embrace other cultures, as you know, not hugely diverse at that time. And our journey started quite by accident. 5th class pupil transferred from another school to our school, and I was 5th and 6th class teacher at the time. and we had a little show and tell, as you do on a Friday afternoon. So this pupil said, Bríd, can I bring in my my photo album of my Erasmus trip to Russia, or Romania? It was Romania at the time. And I said, yes, of course. In she came with her photo album, and she told her story of her trip to Romania. I was so taken by it. I was so, I suppose, interested in it that just after school that day, I rang her principal, her previous principal, and she actually talked me through the process of logging in to the platform and starting my journey. She really spoke so highly of eTwinning and Erasmus. And I guess she inspired me. She said, even if you don't want to go down the road of mobilities, the eTwinning platform is a superb way of just making connections and sharing best practice and opening our eyes, opening children's eyes to other cultures and languages. So this is our school here. As you can see, we're in the country. Outdoor and wellbeing education is central to what we believe in. So this is the platform here. Just quite simply log in, create a username, password, and you can start to build connections. It's very, very easy. I did play around with it and start my journey that way by making connections with around things that I'm interested in. And so I would encourage teachers to do the same. So the eTwinning platform, I'm just going to go through first, because the eTwinning is a very easy, nice way to get to form relationships with other teachers and schools. And we started simply by doing a teddy bear exchange project with a school in Spain. And we didn't have, we hadn't kind of embraced the word of Erasmus or mobility at this stage. It was just simply a lovely safe space, the twin space of sharing our journey, of sharing, actually just very simply sharing teddy bears. We swapped a teddy bear and they sent their teddy bear to our school, and the infant classes collaborated in that. Later on then, once I went into, once we got our OID, as Caroline explained there, the OID you need for Erasmus, once we did that, we used the eTwinning platform, and we used that twin space as part of our projects, as it's just a wonderful place to share all your project work in that safe space. So the Erasmus, again, it's what I would encourage schools and anybody who's interested, any teacher who's interested in Erasmus, is to join, as we said, the school education platform, and then contact schools, maybe join a project around an area or a subject area or a curricular area that you're interested in. There's so much out there. There's so many existing projects looking for partners, and you can join a project that way. It's just a nice way, rather than reinventing the wheel, creating your own project to begin with. I know we started on our Erasmus journey with a school in Spain and Malta, so they were our partners, and our first project was called Sharing and Learning Together. That's the little notice board that we had in our school at the time. And it was very simple. It was just sharing best practices. And we had a teacher mobility in the first year, so we became very familiar with the school. And then we continued later, and our school is still working with the school in Spain, because we've both become accredited. So that follows on. We've become accredited, and we actually are just still partaking in mobilities right now, through the years. But it's such a fabulous way to form connections around areas that you're interested in. So the benefits are the things that we've seen. Sorry, the photographs here are a little bit blurry, but the benefits that we've seen throughout the school are, in terms of well-being, that just all the practices that we've done, all the activities that we've done are hugely beneficial to children. Inclusivity, it brings everybody in. I know Erasmus is about prides itself on providing opportunities for those who don't have so many opportunities. And we're a JESH school, so like I said at the very beginning, our pupils wouldn't have travelled prior to this. They wouldn't have known anything about European countries except that Europe was a continent on the globe. So for them, it's providing that connections, and everyone belongs, everyone is together. We all play a part in our school, in our world. So our minds are just wide open to that. Special education. So we have shared best practice around special education, and I'm a special ed teacher in my school. So we share best practice. We also can provide opportunities for those children who do need support, and they have taken part in all of our activities, some even in the mobilities. But really, when we're together, we pride ourselves on bringing around creating opportunities for the children who need the support. Outdoor education. So I'll show you later on. I have a little video of a day in the life of our Erasmus project, where we focused on our dance and movement, and we had visitors to our school, and we embraced all of that. Creativity is just it's everywhere. Creativity, culture, languages. So really, Erasmus can encompass all areas of the curriculum and all areas, holistic areas in school as well, and children. So the languages, I'm just going to touch on that. We, as anybody who's in primary school knows, that there's a new curriculum framework been introduced, and European languages are part of that curriculum framework. So at the moment, we have a partner, one of our partnering schools is from Spain. So we do a lot of exchanges with them. The school I told you about at the beginning that we're partnered with from 2017. And we also do we do Spanish in school as well. So the children are learning Spanish. The children in Spain are learning English, and we're weaving our cultures together, which is just amazing. Then STEAM as well. I mean, you're, even from my point of view, and that goes down to CPD, STEAM and learning IT, different tools to use in the classroom, innovative ideas. It's just fantastic. And the relationships that we have built through Erasmus projects is it's just absolutely brilliant. I know some of our schools that we have taken part in projects, and we're still in the projects that has ended, but we're still in contact with those teachers, even on a personal level, which is really nice. So these are some of our Erasmus projects. So as I mentioned, sharing and learning together. Everyone is welcome. That was quite a larger project. It had a greater budget, and the focus around that was bringing inclusive practices to our arts in schools, which was, we had 5 countries. We coordinated it from Ireland, and that actually was a bit of a challenge, that project, because COVID happened in the middle of it. So it did pose a bit of a challenge. We didn't get to partake in all of the mobilities, but we did them online. And that was actually amazing as well, because we reached the whole audience. You know, we were able to bring all of our children into that project because we have 80 pupils in the school. Apart from that, then, and Beto is the Better Together. That is school in Spain, and ourselves, and we continued working together. The original school, the very first school we worked with, we continued in another project with them, and now we're both accredited, so we can keep that relationship going. So it's fabulous for a small school with a small population to have the opportunity to bring, you know, we can bring 4 children, 5 children, 6 children to that school. We've built up such a strong connection. They stay with host families, they feel very safe, and vice versa. They come to us. And it's just so powerful to have that strong relationship. As well as that, we and going back to CPD there in the last slide, we do a lot of teachers courses and training. So the staff have traveled to Italy, Greece, Croatia, Spain, and Portugal, and a lot of those courses have been around. You know, one was teaching and learning through art, and then we did lots of work around introducing healthy initiatives into our school, and teacher wellbeing, which is really important, because sometimes you can talk about pupil wellbeing, and we talk about children a lot, and this the conference is all, the theme is wellbeing, but we can't forget about teacher wellbeing and working together, and that team building, that doing, just taking a bit of time out to come together and focus on ourselves as colleagues is just a great opportunity. So I just have the everyone is welcome there, and a little blurb on our website going back to 2018 when we were taking part in the Sharing and Learning Together project. And these are just some photographs. I just have a few photographs to give you a flavour of activities that we have taken part in, and just to build a picture of our journey with other schools through Erasmus. So as you can see, you know, you're talking about well-being and creativity. You know, those pictures give a nice flavour, I think, of things that we have done on our journey. And here we have more, you know, you can look at outdoor education. We have some photographs there of staff on a course and taking part in outdoor, you know, mindfulness, Pilates on the beach. That was a fabulous journey. And then I have photographs there of our pupils in Spain in another school. So that was an amazing trip. And again, some outdoor activities that we had visitors from Spain, and we went down to the beach. We live very close to the beach, so we were able to do that. And another thing, I just have a photograph there of a visit, an intercultural day in our local post-primary school, and they have also started, they were inspired by us, and they've also started eTwinning and Erasmus in their school. So we link in with them. We haven't done an eTwinning project with them yet, but I'm hoping to do so in the future. So a day in the life of an Erasmus exchange, and this, it just gives you a flavour of what being a host school can look like. This was one of our Erasmus projects. It was part of the Everyone is Welcome project, and it was, I think it was first or second day, we just, it's day one, we had a smaller group. We hadn't, all of our visitors hadn't arrived yet, but we had a group from Poland, I think, on the very first day, because they arrived early. So we provided some activities, and we gave them a good flavour of dance and movement. That was our theme for that project. So I'm just going to play that video. for you. So that it brings me to the end of my little presentation. But I hope I've given you a flavour of what it is like from the perspective of a teacher. As I said at the beginning, I'm primary school, and I'm principal of a small school in the west of Ireland. Our experience of Erasmus Plus, and the eTwinning that's woven into it, I guess, has been amazing. And I hope we continue the journey. I'd love other schools to join, to taste the goodness that it brings to the school. It really is phenomenal. And I know how busy schools are. I get it, schools are so busy, and I wonder sometimes, I'd love to see more of it, but I wonder if perhaps there's so much going on, there's so many new initiatives coming at us, and it can seem like a lot of work. But I think just reaching out, even as teachers ourselves, reaching out to one another, picking up the phone or sharing email addresses and collaborating together, to encourage each other, it would be great. I can only speak very highly of our experience, and I hope it continues long into the future. But have we got any questions?
At present, Bríd, we don't, but just to remind everybody again, so the Q&A feature is located at the bottom of your PC or laptop screen, or if you're using an iPad, you'll find this feature located at the top of your screen. There's also an option for you to use the raise hand feature. So if you look again at the bottom of your screen, there's like a raise hand. If not, click the 3 dots and there should be an option. If you click raise hand, I will ask you to unmute yourself. But we will just give you a moment and see if you have some questions. But ladies, thank you for that fabulous presentation.
Maybe I just might say, if you are interested in Erasmus Plus projects, no project is too small. So if you just want to get started and you just want to send maybe 1 or 2 teachers, that's completely fine. It's always best to kind of just start small and dip your toe in to see what works for your school or what you'd be interested in. So yeah, so no project is too small. And thanks, Bríd, for your presentation. That was great. I don't always get to see the pictures or like the nice side of it all. So it was great for me to see all that.
Oh, thanks, Caroline. Yeah, it's super. It's such a fantastic experience. And as you said, to start small, start really, really small, and just dip your toes in the water and you'll be swimming in no time.
Sorry, I'll have a question in case anyone doesn't go further. But Bríd, if anyone did want to contact you to find out more about that experience, how would they do it?
Yes, I can give my email address here.
Lovely.
Will I pop it in?
Yeah, so if you just pop it in the chat there to me, I'll be able to share it out with everybody.
Brilliant.
And I think then after we have sent that out, Bríd, Carol and Bríd, unless you have anything else you wish to go through, or there it is. So just bear with me a second. I'm just going to send this out to everyone. So in your chat there now, you attendees, you should be able to see Bríd's email address, because I think it might be after this and it resonates. You may want to reach out. And at least
absolutely do, because I'm more than happy to talk to anybody. Yeah, I'd love to spread the good news.
That's perfect. So Bríd and Carol, we don't seem to have any questions. I think what you've given has just enlightened people and left them with much to think about. So I think if we're okay, my colleague Lauren is going to share a closing slide, unless you've anything else you wish to go through.
Yeah, thank you.
And you're all free to go. Have a fabulous Saturday, everybody.
Thanks everyone.
Jean.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.